If you like what you're hearing on One and would like to support the podcast, I have a PayPal, which is mitchminute@aol.com. Also, if you'd like to support the other podcasts on the Talking Metal Digital Network, I invite you to listen and tune in to Mars Attacks, Talking Metal, and of course, the great host, Mark Striegel. Mitch Lafon. Welcome to episode 38 of One with Mitch Lafon. I, of course, am your host, Mitch Lafon, and I am joined not by Mark Striegel of Talking Metal and not by Russ Dwarf of the Killer Dwarf, both unavailable. But when you're an active touring rock band like Russ Dwarf is with the Killer Dwarfs, it was bound to happen as, Wi-Fi and cell phone from the road, hotel room, not always obvious, but I have a very, very special co-host. I have brought on my daughter, Jayda. Good day.
Hi.
So, what do you think of all this rock star stuff?
It's cool.
Good. I'm glad you like that. Now, we're both from a Danish descent, and I have got a guest from Danish descent today, Mr. Mike Tramp of White Line. I've played some White Line in the house for you. I hope you've always enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Well, you are just talking up a storm, I can tell. Do you want to do a radio or podcast co-hosting at some point in your life?
Maybe.
Do you have anything to say other than one-word answers?
No, not really.
No, not really. So let's just remind everybody that this episode of One is brought to you by the MelodicRockFest 4 that takes place October 3rd and 4th in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and features performances by Mitch Malloy, Heaven's Edge, Seventh Heaven, Paul Laine, Bombay Black, and many more. Visit MelodicRockFest.com. And of course, the festival is organized by Andrew McNeese over at MelodicRock.com. So let's just get right into our first interview. We've got Mike Tramp, formerly, of course, of White Line. He's got a new album that just came out this month called Museum. If you really tuned in to the White Lion's When Children Cry song, just that voice and guitar, that's really what Mike is doing these days. And, he's put together a fun album. I think you'll really get a kick out of it. So why don't we just sit back, listen to Mike Tramp, and then we'll come back and we'll get into our second interview with John Allen of the band Charm City Devils. He was also in SR-71. And we'll chat some more with my daughter, Jayda. Here's Mike Tramp. So we're talking with Mike Tramp. I guess we say formerly of White Lion, or do we say of White Lion?
Well, it's obviously an issue that goes on and on and on. Are you from, are you of, or what are you, man? I would like to think that I was just Mike Tramp, and once I played in White Lion.
Right. Okay. Now you're talking to me today. We've done this before. Today is because you've got Museum, a new album coming out in August, and it's a little bit different than what folks might expect.
Well, yeah. Listen, there are still people expecting to hear Vito Bratta play on my record or see the White Lion logo. They're probably the same ones still thinking there's a dinosaur walking around in some kind of like forest and still alive. You know what? It's probably one of the more interesting issues for you and I to talk about, because I'm not going to be able to top any Gene Simmons stories about being on the road and what happened, stuff like that. It's just a fact. But the fact is really, and I was talking to some other journalists about it, and we as human beings and we as musicians and we as artists or songwriters, some of us actually move on.
Right.
We're not just, I do actually have more than one pair of pants. And, it's just the way it is. And as I have progressed, the band Freak of Nature, which I formed after White Line,
which is a great band,
was not just about starting another band, but it was also that I felt a calling. I could already hear it in my voice that I wanted to sing different and sing something, that was different from White Lion and stuff like that. And then after that, I just followed the natural calling for me. And as I returned to be a solo artist, I just became me. And this is where a lot of people get confused. This is Mike Tramp. When I was in White Line, I was Mike Tramp in White Line, and I played that role. And if I was the leader or the songwriter or the singer, whatever, and the same thing with Freak of Nature. But once that I'm by myself, it actually becomes kind of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's not really a gourmet meal, but it's pretty good tasting.
Yeah, it is. But
Yeah, you know.
yeah, but of course, that doesn't preclude that fans, if they go to a show, they're going to still hear the White Lion songs.
Well, I look from the stage out into the audience, and my audience are not 18 years old.
Right.
I mean, they're almost as old as I am, and then once in a while there's some that just wandered wild into the club and thought, it was Linkin Park playing or whatever. But they get converted at the end of the day because they do find out that what I do represent is the real deal. And of course, I play heritage and homage to my my foundation of White Lion and also Freak of Nature and stuff like that. These songs belong in the set, and I take a lot of time to tell the audience that my way of writing songs, or my foundation of songwritings, is very folk oriented, and that is sort of course where I am today. But a lot of the White Lion songs came from that thing, so it's easy for me to take these songs back to play them that way and show people how strong the song still is, even though it doesn't have the incredible guitar work of Vito Bratta or James or Greg in the song. I'm still able to play the song, and there really isn't, at that moment while I'm playing it, missing anything.
No, there really isn't. Now, the
maybe
question...
20,000 people in the audience, but
yeah, but it's a more intimate setting. My question
who remembers that?
Pardon me?
Who remembers that?
Yeah. Well, you need some intimacy in your music. That's what music was all about. But my question to artists, especially as you said, heritage acts, is why bother making new music? Fans seem to have a very short attention span. Give them a 3-minute single, throw it up on iTunes or on Amazon or Google Play or wherever you throw them up these days, and then go back and play When Children Cry 18 times.
Yeah, and you got a great point there. And it's not too long ago I read that one band was making that statement. It's the same kind of band that gets $100,000 per festival and stuff like this, and maybe plays 20 festivals in a year, and then they go back home and they take their wigs off and then they become something else.
Right.
And that's fine. I happen not to be in a band like that, and I am. In a situation where, when I was younger, I walked down the street and I saw there was a painter sitting in a basement painting, and I really liked the painting, so I knocked on the door and says, how much for the painting? And he goes to me, he says, this is not for sale. I go, what do you mean it's not for sale? Why you paint? Oh, I paint for me.
Right, so you're music.
I don't write songs these days because I think I'm going to be on MTV or on the radio. I write the songs because they come to me as I sit and play guitar.
Right.
I don't sit and rehearse playing guitar. I just sit because I like the sound of it and I like the comfort. Like some people smoke a pipe. I play an acoustic guitar, and have a cup of tea. And then it comes, but it's only about a couple of days ago, I woke up with a similar feeling as what you're talking about, as this, why am I recording albums and going through the process, and even the process of recording an album, even on a small level, manufacturing it and putting it out still costs money before you start maybe breaking even. And then I also remembered reading in an article, I do actually read once in a while in classic rock, and it says that Sebastian Bach had, were angry with the 70,000 Facebook fans because he didn't understand why 70,000 people were following, but only 3,000 or 5,000 people had bought his album. And you know what? He actually got a point. Now, let's just say here, at this moment, I got about 12,000 fans and stuff like that on
Facebook.
And I have serviced them pretty damn well with I was going to say private videos, such as videos of songs in the hotel.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that.
And giving people I sometimes I wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, I better give them something, and then I go, wow, what do I get in return? Maybe 300 sold albums via Facebook. So you do end up with that kind of battle, and if it's a tough day, you might just decides that, you know what, I ain't doing this anymore.
Right.
So you have to do it for the passion,
Is there
not
always,
for the return.
well, that's what I was going to say. Do you always need a return? I mean, when you throw a picture up on Facebook, sometimes you get 100 likes, sometimes you get 1,000, sometimes you get 2. Does it make one more valid than the other? I mean, it's still important to get out there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I use it more as information, as for those who want to follow and listings of shows, news about the album, etc., etc. It is but I do believe that there is a fine line that a lot of people live via Facebook, and many could be artists too. That it is the return. Holy shit, what did they say about what I just wrote and stuff like that? And then you get dragged into the fight and go, don't ask me about Vito again. I every month I almost put a statement up. And there's nothing else I can do about it.
You mean I can't ask you if Vito's coming back to White Line?
No, you can, and then I can answer. And then I can hope that the 12,000 people that log in to see this video clip when we put it up actually will remember and not write, is Vito coming back?
Yeah, it is too bad though. I was thinking about these musicians that had these great presence in the 80s. Izzy Stradlin, Alec John Such of Bon Jovi, and Vito, and they just vanished from the face of the earth. I don't understand how that happens, quite frankly. How do you go from playing giant stadium, at least in Bon Jovi's case, to just not existing?
I'm sure that if we had those 3 guys right now with us, they all would have a different story. Yeah. Some people leave, some people hold back. And I'm not going to lie to you. There is a part of me that would love to just turn around and wander into the forest and never come out again. Really? Okay, this is a daily battle that goes on, because if you get deep into analyzing the music business, it's kind of like talking to Hannibal Lecter. He messes your head up, or you can just take it as Kiss do, and you just say, well, we're just going to open another franchise, and you completely look at it that way. But in my case, and it's not that I'm any less or any more than anybody else, it's just my heart and my soul is so deep into this music that it affects me equally, both ups and downs and stuff like that. There's a rush, but there's also an incredible letdown and a big sadness that I almost daily feel.
Right.
And sometimes I go, wow, why have I put a tour together of 50 shows? I don't want to go out on tour. And then I get up on stage, and then it feels good, all right. And then you sit alone in the hotel room, and then you think, and then there's something else coming into your life and stuff like that. So, it's.
Yeah. And I'll talk about the tour in a second. Let's talk about the social media, because you do throw stuff up on Facebook. Back in the day, you didn't have to do anything. The record company made the videos, MTV played the videos, radio spun it. Now you sort of have to get out there on Twitter and Facebook and do it yourself. And that's got its minuses, its plus and minuses, right? You've got the interaction with the fans, which is great, but sometimes you've got the interaction with the fans, which is not so great. So explain sort of how it is now to market the music.
Yeah, I've taken to sort of limit it to the way that people can only comment, and because I don't want to get into a private argument between people and stuff like that, because it's really easy to get hooked in there. Yep. This is also one of the reasons why I don't Twitter. Why do I need to tell someone that I just had a glass of orange juice?
Well, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is. But then at the same time, I do want to share stuff with him. Then I posted something big about the shooting down of the Malaysian airline plane and stuff like that, and not just specific just that, but basically how much it evolves into so many different things. Right. And then you feel, okay, do I want to go that deep and now on a daily level discuss worldly subjects and stuff like that? And then you go, oh man, but I gotta do something else today, and you know where we're going with this. I
Yeah.
mean, it is that, I've been even thinking about doing my own little, you can't call it a TV show, but you can call it a net show, where then you want to say something, and then you throw some feelers out there. Are there somebody, and I don't want to debate, I just want to maybe alert some people to a thought that they might not have, and then just leave it at that,
Yeah, where's the fine line though? Because you look at Ted Nugent these days; he's very controversial, and they've been boycotting him, and they're canceling his shows. Where's the fine line for you between making a statement on what happened with the Malaysian Airlines to, now you're getting into being too political, or too, where's that fine line there?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. Why you list don't allow any comments on any YouTube clips you post, because it sort of spoils it all, because
Right.
it's a debate behind closed doors, and anybody can sit there and be mighty with a keyboard and say a lot of stuff, and I have watched debates around the world, and I'm really up and reading a lot of books, and I'm deep into things like you would just mention and stuff like that. If it's religious war, if it's 9/11 and stuff like that, and I've expressed that to fans, that it's something that occupies quite a big part of my life about these things. But at the same time, I'm also not silly to think that I can get any further with it. All that I can do is that I know where I stand,
Right.
and I know what I believe. Maybe once in a while I open the door and just say a few little things. They could be in the songs, or it could just be a comment. But I know that it's a lost cause. I can't take on the world right now. No talk show on TV ever resolves anything. Dr. Phil has the last word. So did Morton Downey Jr., so does Howard Stern. And, it just, and then they bring on a guest and he gets to say three things. And then, if he's against the issue, it gets even less. And you just get disappointed because you really want it to be resolved there. So, I appreciate that you brought that up, because it's a frustrating thing,
It really is. Now, the other thing that I've noticed that can be frustrating is, how music can be very regional. You've had success in Asia, you've had success in Europe, you've had success in North America. Why do you think some bands like Status Quo, Thunder, Gothard are really sort of European bands, and then you look at bands like REO Speedwagon, Journey, Styx, they're almost American bands? Why does that happen?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. And for now you mentioned Status Quo. Status Quo came almost out at the same time as Led Zeppelin or Bad Company, not very, very early 70s. I can't tell you if they existed in the late 60s but based upon their age and how long they've been playing, I'm sure they stood in a rehearsal room in 1969 and stuff like that.
Right.
And there are a lot of British bands that are just so British and so European and represents a certain way of not wanting to conform in those days to the American way and the American radio and stuff like that. One of my own favorite bands, Slade, wrote just one hit after another and was huge in Europe and didn't make it in America until Quiet Riot did 2 songs from them, etc. I don't have the answer. I just, it's just something. But there's also American bands that never, broke in Europe and never, because they had just a whole different attitude to it. And Europe is a tougher continent,
But you had to do the same kind of thing, though. When you were in Denmark doing, Mabel and all those other bands, you had to move to New York to make it in the States, right?
Well, yeah. My trips to New York were based on a lot of different things, but to be part of the American sound that I was seeking, and also at the same time, one of my dreams were to sing about something where I was. These days, I hook up with younger bands around, let's say it's in my home country of Denmark. I says, really try to make your lyrics speak about where you come from. Don't be singing about Sunset Boulevard. Okay, man, make it from where you're from. That is what makes it real, and that's what makes you special in your own way. Don't be talking about Hollywood when you haven't been to America yet and stuff like that. It's overdone, So
if you're down in Aarhus, you shouldn't be talking about Hollywood.
There are bands that do.
But what are you talking about then on Museum, the new album? That you've got songs like Trust in Yourself, New World Coming, Down South, Better, Freedom, Commitment. There seems to be a positive message going on. What are you trying to say lyrically on this album?
A little bit more. I mean, I made the stand when I wrote and recorded my first solo album, and I remember meeting you in
Montreal,
Toronto, Montreal. Yes, we talked about it the other day, 2001 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That when you heard the word "I," it would represent me,
right?
Good or bad. When I was in White Lion, I was singing to the masses, and in many cases, I wasn't representing myself. It was at that moment something that went along with the music,
right.
And here and there are the special songs that are a little different. And so once I took that on, it became sort of like my view of the world, how I felt, et cetera, et cetera. As I got, I hate to use the word, as I got older and deeper into my solo career, it became my own escape from my own pain and suffering, even if it was just emotional, even if it was my family life or whatever it was simply just about that. And it's just what I chose, that's what I want to represent. And I'm always so thrilled when I meet people that have lived through my songs, and some of those songs have helped them in that way, and so, because you are free to take my song and make you in that case and stuff like that, so that's what about. And so, especially since we talked about Cobblestone Street last year and things like that, that album obviously became really the complete return to my Tramp's background and foundation of Copenhagen, Denmark, and how I had grown up and how I had been raised on those kind of songs. And even though I didn't know it, they had attached themselves to me, and bit by bit, it came out in me, and I always was wondering, why is it that I always start with the same kind of foundation to any song, regardless if it was Vito and I sitting there or later on, and then I just one day realized that, well, that's because where you come from and the way you grew up, and that's what you are, and that's who you are. So with Museum, I did not want to copy Cobblestone Street. I wanted to make the natural progression. I wanted to make the sound a little bit bigger. At the same time, I also wanted to explore my love for different songs. Growing up, and my favorite time of music is the 70s, and especially felt a lot of the English bands that I grew up with. Let's just take Queen or Elton John and stuff like that. They had these massive albums, and the reason why they were so massive was the variety of songs. I'm a huge, gigantic AC/DC Van Halen fan, but on the 25th album, it is what it is.
Right, it's the same album.
Exactly, and stuff like that. And as a songwriter, my variety is much bigger. So I went with a little bit of a different approach to it. Some of the songs came from the classic background of how I write songs. And for example, a song like Down South or a song like Slave, which are sort of a little bit more rocker or guitar oriented, were songs that I simply just had the guitar riff from a bit early on the Rock and Roll Circus, where I've been sitting and doing some electric riffs. So I said to my partner and co-producer Søren Andersen, says, you know what? Can you just give me like a drum loop behind that riff? And then as that had settled itself, I wrote the song out from what I'd heard. And now I started writing the melody and the bridge and the chorus, where usually I will sit and play the guitar and sing the song and do everything right there.
Right.
So I used a couple of different approaches. And then it just came that as we were sitting there listening to the different worlds, we came into, it's like, a room with a lot of different doors, and every door you opened, there was something different. I just came over, this is sort of like a museum, in a simple way. Instead of trying to come up with some sort of clever way of maybe that is a clever way, explaining why is this song, the Germans asked this question, why is this not like why have you done that? It's I haven't done anything, it just happened. It sort of explains it in the way that, my songwriting covers a lot of different, styles, but still within one style.
It is. Now, you've also got sort of a family theme to this. You've got a song called Mother on it, and you have Dylan, your son, who worked on the video, on Trust in Yourself.
Obviously the time had come, and, I read an interview, I read a review where somebody had pointed out how already from Freak of Nature, I had been talking about, my family or my mom in that case, and in a song called Have You Ever from my first solo album, giving thanks to her. And so nothing special that other people can't do by themselves and things like that. But for some reason, something that a lot of fans took to and felt that was special. And I know already now that from those who have heard Mother, I know that a lot of people will take this song very personal for themselves.
Yes.
And you could even take it, because I've also mentioned sometimes people get my lyrics wrong, because I also want to be allowed to use it as a metaphor and not just say, well, it's just what it is. Mother could obviously is the foundation and the giver and the creator of everything. So, you're free. Little Fighter does not always have to be about, the Rainbow Warrior that got sunk down by New Zealand. A lot of people taking it on as their own struggle in life, and that they will find hope in that song. Right. And I love hearing that.
And that they will fight on. Also, now your tours, the last tour through the States, it was basically just you in a car driving from show to show and setting up with a guitar. There was no band. Tell me a little about that experience, and is that something you're going to continue doing?
Yeah, and obviously this year, I was just sort of repeating and extending what I'd done the year before. Right. And for example, when I play in Denmark, it allows me to play with sort of a band, or I have two other guys with me, because I don't really want to make my sound as what I'm doing right now the feeling of a band. It's sort of a little bit of an experiment with that I've chosen to be my own little world there. Right. But yes, excuse me, I do miss at times some sound on stage. That's beside that. But this is adapting and improvising, to the situation of how the music business is. Right. And I found out that this actually was something that fitted my character, my discipline, and my way of life very much. Yeah. I'm a person, that rises early. I'm a person that likes to see the world. I'm a person that likes to hit the sack as soon as I'm done with the show. I don't like nightlife. I don't like to party and stuff like that. And I love to see the world, or I love to see America, Northern, and really get into small towns. And this tour allows me that, because I'm never playing the big cities, So as my son was joining me on the last tour, and we drove by the big cities, and I told my son, I said, "Oh, that's the big city, but that's not what we're playing. We're playing the little cities. We're reaching people out there." And there's a certain charm about it. Obviously, I played every big city in America twice with White Lion. Yep. And I have been sitting in a big, luxurious tour bus, probably watching Godfather or something like that, not looking out the window. I love America, and it to me, it always represents happiness to me, complete freedom. Even though I'm born in a country of complete freedom, that to me is the final frontier that still has something left that I still treasure and cherish so much, of a bit of the outdoor. There's still people living the old-fashioned way, an axe and some firewood, a loaded gun by the bed, and that's just the way it is. And that to me is something that I admire. So being able to travel around and go through these little cities and stop and finding the small stores is to me the return.
Yeah,
I know how it's going to be in States, and I'll give myself there, but that extra thing that I get along the road now is living life.
Yeah, it's a really charming experience, and you've been sort of all over the place. I know you've lived in Australia. You've obviously lived in Denmark. I think you lived in Indonesia. Why this sense of adventure? Why not just sort of move to somewhere in Los Angeles and stay there and be in the music business?
And you know what? I did say it last year to the fans as I was writing on Facebook and stuff like that. I deeply regret leaving the USA after 20 years and that mode and that time. Moving to Australia. Australia was great and stuff again. I moved there with my ex-wife and my son and we're going to do a new start. This was at the end of the 90s. There was a lot of confusion going on, and I didn't know where I was musically. At the same time, there was nobody that I trusted. Everybody had led me wrong, of the people that had given commission of my income and stuff like that. And then we ended up there, and me giving up my residency and my right to call America my home. And sometimes you just don't take enough time to think before you you sell that old hot rod in the garage and you regret it down the road. And now it's a little bit baby. And then with time, I sort of started doing more and more back in Denmark, and the last 5 albums have been recorded here, and I find that a perfect working place with the people that I work with. But my past 2 American tours have been the highlight of my musical career. It's as simple as that. Now I'm on my 3rd European tour, and they have been equally as great, and I'm looking very much forward to start this European tour next month and stuff like that,
We're looking forward to getting you in Canada, quite frankly.
Now that I will be returning to the U.S. in March of 2015, which will be the museum tour, and very hopefully to including Canada.
Yeah, I know enough promoters. I think I'll have to make a few calls. We need another show.
I actually got some offers already last time. It was just already, there was just the routing already, just that it's part of it and stuff like that. Of course.
Is museum the last statement, or are you going to keep making music?
Oh, no, it cannot be the last statement, and not at all, and stuff like that. But
yeah,
this is pretty tough. I mean, was it to be the last? Then I would say, wow, what a way to go out.
Okay, it is a great way to go out. And boy, I just lost my question. I lost my question. Isn't that unbelievable?
I said something was pretty dramatic.
Well, yeah, you threw me off. But, always a pleasure speaking with you. And I really do look forward to getting you out to Canada and seeing another show. And I'll even travel to go see you in Boston or New York or something, because there's a certain honesty in what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mitch. And, I think that the fans also need to realize these things. What you see right now and what we have right now will pretty soon be gone. There are many bands, younger bands, that's making music and continuing this thing, but it will not take the place of the world that we were part of.
No, absolutely not.
And that's just the way it is. I have chosen, and I will spend a little bit more time on stage and in interviews kind of beating this gently into people's head, that I have chosen to be a little bit of a hybrid, something from the past mixed with something from the even further past, with where I am today.
Yep.
That I do represent the decade that I became famous from.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm living in the current world.
Yeah.
And I'm not this is not just a show of the old days. So I'm mixing these different things, and that's a place where I'm going to be. I am the one from the 80s who moved on.
Yeah, and that's always been very admirable, because when grunge hit, you went with Freak of Nature. You didn't say, well, let me hold on to Wait and Tell Me and let me. And then when that moved on, you moved on to you've always been moving. There's always been something new coming forward. It's not just been, hey, I did this song in 1986. Let me play it for you 10 times and let's call that a show. And that's very admirable.
Well, there are actually artists. It's not just Peter Gabriel and Sting or Roger Waters or Trent Reznor or something like that. I mean, they're actually also somebody from our decade that would be able to leave the spandex pants, even though I never wore them. They just look like them. And just say, you know what? That hairstyle is a bit tacky now. Okay? Yeah. And that's fine. And you know what? I admire just as many of the ones that still keep that look. And that's fine. That's just not from my Tramp, because that's not who I am. So I want to follow where the music is going to me. Hey, I'm not going to say if I've been part of AC/DC that I would have said, I'm going to do something new. We're going to do a ballad on the next album. I love that album, a band to death. And I admire that they're a band that can be so true to a style that has never changed. But it's not my Tramp.
No, and there is that school of thought where you do what your sound is, like AC/DC, or you do what you're doing and you evolve with the times. It's those bands in between that sort of seem to be chasing the flavor of the month and just never seem to be catching it, that you go, you know what, go back to your roots.
Exactly. And at the same time, a lot of us don't have, and luxury might be a word to be debated, but Kiss has just been able to just, the image, they're just moving on, and it just represents something that has never gone away.
Yep.
And then, once in a while, they write some new songs that people don't care about and stuff like that. And then you do so. You can't do that with White Lion, especially not when the band is not together.
Right.
and at the same time, there's just not enough in that to just keep doing it over and over, et cetera, et cetera. It's so unique from the few gigantic bands that had that.
Yep. But
the rest of us end up playing on a boat and, and entertaining, people around the world. And I've just chosen to do it with an acoustic guitar and let the music change a bit, but still play the same songs.
Yeah, so let's end on this. Of course, let's remind folks that Museum is coming out in August. And quickly, what is then your greatest memory of your time in White Lion? Either a show, a fan, a person that you hit number one somewhere. What was the best time?
You see, I mean, I would be able to give you so many better answers. This one, I cannot come up with a great answer.
The first one on the top of your head.
Yeah. Going on stage, with Kiss at the first show and knowing that at that moment we had arrived at a different plateau.
Right.
Because after that, we now started seeing everything in a different way. And day by day, slowly, the band fell apart because the chase was greater than the catch.
Right, like Kierkegaard said, right? It was the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard that always said the anticipation is greater than the get, or something like that.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or David Ross says it in this way: life is like a kung fu movie. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you look good doing it.
I think, yeah, that's also what Billy Crystal on Saturday Night Live used to say. Where was that first White Lion show, by the way, with Kiss?
It was in Jackson, Mississippi on November 13, 1987.
There you go. See, that's the memorable moment.
It's engraved on the back of a watch.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it was given to me that day.
Pleasure. And I saw that tour. Where was I? That was at the Forum, I think I saw it. At the Hot in the Shade tour, was it?
No, this was the
Revenge?
Crazy Nights. It was not. Let's just put it this way: it was not Kiss's greatest tour.
But they're still entertaining, and White Line was entertaining, and this new album is entertaining. Michael, always a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody out there for the support.
And so that was Mike Tramp talking, of course, about his new album, Museum, and the future of White Line and all that wonderful stuff. Did you enjoy that interview, Jayda?
Yes, I did.
Would you like to do an interview at some point?
Yes.
Good. You're really good at those one answers. I'm glad I taught you how to speak a lot more. Now, we're going now to listen to a band, actually to a guy named John Allen, who's in a band called Charm City Devils. They have got a new album called Battles that comes out in September. It's just a fine slice of rock music. I've played it in the house. Did you like Charm City Devils?
Yes, I did. It was really, really good.
See, that's what's really, you can't, when you get it from the word, what's the expression, from the mouth of babes, right? It has to be true. Now, of course, John did a little bit like what Dave Grohl did in the Foo Fighters. He was behind the kit in a band called SR-71, who had this really smash hit called Right Now in the year 2000. And, of course, he stepped out from behind the kit to form his own band, Charm City Devils, in 2007. And so why don't we just sit down and have a nice listen to this. And you'll actually get to hear my sometimes co-host, Russ Dwarf, because he sat in on this interview. Jayda, you ready to listen to John Allen of Charm City Devils?
Yes.
Yeah, see? I'm teaching her young. Isn't it fantastic? So here's John Allen of Charm City Devils. Joining us today from Charm City Devils is John Allen. Good day, sir. How are you?
Good, man. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. Well, you said, how are we doing? Of course, we have Russ Dwarf, the co-host, on with us today. Good day, Russ.
How you doing, guys?
Good. Russ doesn't join us for every interview, but he is today. There's a special reason for that. You guys know each other.
Yeah, man. We played on the Monsters of Rock cruise this past year.
It was a lot of fun, and it was great. Great meeting you guys, and I love the band. I just absolutely love the band.
Thank you, man. We love us some Killer Dwarfs too, bro, man.
Awesome.
Our guitar player's wife was like, man, she was all over it. She had a whole pie chart or like a Excel spreadsheet of when we were going to go see which bands in which bar and what theater on the ship, man. She was dragging us all over the place. It was a really great time. We have to recommend that cruise to anyone who are thinking about going. They should definitely go.
Now, let me just start with that, Russ. What about them do you find special? Because, you've been around since the early 80s. You've seen tons of bands. Everybody from Thin Lizzy to Aerosmith. What's special about Charm City Devils to you?
I love the band because they're holding, the rock and roll torch from our, my generation. They're the new generation coming up, and they're totally passionate about it and their spirit, and just to see these guys and hear the tunes, they've totally got it. Totally going to be great things coming from them, for sure.
Yeah. So
thank you, man.
Yeah. So John, let's get into the band then. Let's start with the new album. End of September, you've got Battles coming out. Tell me about what you wanted to do or say with this album.
Well, it kind of speaks to what Russ was talking about. Carrying the torch for rock. A lot of pundits, a lot of press, a lot of people are saying that rock is on its last leg or is dead or whatever, and we're just trying to pick up that mantle and run with it and bring it back into the forefront. Bring it, make it one of the most popular or the popular pop form of music instead of other forms.
The one thing I ask everybody now who puts out an album is, why bother? Why not just go for that one song, throw it up on iTunes, go to the bar, play a few gigs, or go on tour? Why bother putting together 10 or 12 songs?
I guess, we are getting to that era where, it seems like the single or the one tune, the MP3 has become more prevalent. for myself, I write songs, I write slow songs, and I was talking with my manager about it the other day. I'm not good at picking out what song is the single, so I wouldn't say, oh, this is the tune, I can't step outside of my own perspective, and kind of judge that. So I leave that up to, the professionals, and I just, write what I write. And, it's like, some songs are like, wonderful. They turn out, wonderful. It's like, I used to think of my tunes like, like my children. I used to be very protective. You hear a lot of people talk about that. And I feel like I've written so many at this point where I kind of look at them like taking a dump. Some are more impressive than others. Some you're happy to get out. Some are kind of, it might be a little bit of a disappointment. You just you never know. And I don't have the, I try not to have a major emotional attachment to any one particular song, because music is so subjective that some people aren't going to get every tune that you write, and it's not going to maybe impact them as much as it might mean have a meaning for you.
Right. Russ, is that how you see the Killer Dwarf songs too? Just a pile of dumps, and some are better than others?
Well, some people might think so. I think you're right on the money with, they're your children. You need to, there is a point where you need to step away from it.
Right.
And just, okay, that's done, leave it, move on to the next thing. You can't, you'll kill it if you overanalyze it. We've been through those situations where, we had a big record deal and we went in and, this is going to be the single, and they just concentrated on it so much that they killed it. It turned into crap, you know.
Actually, let's talk about that. John, you were part of a big record deal in the past. You were signed to RCA with SR71.
Right.
The second album, Tomorrow, came out. Tell me a little bit about what it was like trying to be a rock band on RCA. They're not really that good at it, are they?
Well, they were really good at the first record. They did a great job with that one. Mm-hmm. We had the unfortunate fate to be released like within a week or two of a Foo Fighters record.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were pretty screwed out of the gate there for the second record. I don't know. I mean, it's all about, I think, timing a lot of times. I mean, that band, it had a certain sound, and that sound, was gone from the radio at that point.
Right.
And when you're signed to a major label, the goal is to promote that record and to, make that record as financially viable. And, they have a lot invested in it. And if there's no place to really promote it in a way, it makes it more difficult, and that was the unfortunate, fate of that band.
Before we get back to Charm City Devils, I do have two more questions about that, though. Working with Butch Walker, what did you learn, or how was that experience for you?
It was a great experience. I wish he only did 4 songs for that record because of prior scheduling commitments. It would have been great to have had him for the whole record, but it was a great experience. He's a tremendously talented guy, and have you ever seen Butch live?
I have, and I actually saw SR71 live.
Oh my gosh!
I saw you guys opening for Bon Jovi. Now, I don't know if you were part of that tour at that point. Cause had you made the switch to be their drummer at that point?
Yeah, was it in Ontario or
I saw them in I believe it was Quebec City and Ottawa.
Yeah, Pepsi Colassie, right? And
yep.
In Quebec City.
Yep.
Yeah, I was on that. I had just joined the band actually. at that point. Yeah, it was great to join and jump right into the arenas. Man, that was cool.
Well, so let me just quickly talk about that. What was it like being on tour with Bon Jovi, arguably sort of the biggest hair 80s band of the 80s, if not ever? I mean, they just dominated that market.
Yeah, no. Bon Jovi, that going on that tour, being the drummer in SR-71 was fantastic. To finally get to arenas, after playing drums forever, and that's one of your goals, to get to that point, and doing that night after night for I think it was like a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. It made me hungrier to just to want to get back to that level again. And then when I eventually put down the drumsticks and went out front, I was like, we got to get there, we got to get there. And
right.
Fortunately for us, our first tour was Crew Fest 2, opening for Motley and Godsmack, and I was kind of thrown into the deep end there. I'd never fronted a band. But,
I want to ask you about that, and I don't mean to cut you up, but I want to ask you about that. How was that decision made? I mean, did you always think, wow, I'm a lead singer, and what am I doing back here? Or you're like, well, listen, somebody's got to do this. Might as well be me. Tell me about that.
It was more of the latter, actually. Okay. Yeah, I'd always sung, but I never had confidence in my voice, for years. And I was sang backups. I always thought I was a backup singer, really. And finally, we were kind of, SR-71 had run its course, and I felt like, I don't know, I wrote a song while the singer was in LA, and I thought it had something. And I decided at that point, look, I'm going to do this, it's now or never, and I'm going to work on my timetable. I was like, I'm tired of waiting around for lead singers, man,
Yeah.
And, I'm going to do this. And the one song quickly became, like 6. And then that, quickly became 9. I was like, man, I got a record here. So I just kept going, and things kind of happened sort of fast from there.
Well, yeah, I mean, Nikki Sixx sort of signed you and gave you your name, unless that's incorrect.
No, that's correct. Yeah, we from the putting the final lineup together, we started getting airplay here in town in Baltimore, and from there, actually, I just shot some blind emails out to a couple of companies and a few too. You alluded to SR-71. Some of my contacts in the business from that band. None of those people got back to me, by the way.
Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with you, right? Which is sort of what happened with the third album. They went, yeah, okay, great, that's all right now.
Right. No, but then just out of the blue, I get this phone call from New York, and it was 11/7 Music, and they're like, yeah, you sent us an email, yeah. I kept thinking that somebody was punking me, but I realized I hadn't told anyone. I sent this email up there. So in a month, I was in New York having a meeting with the CEO of the label, and at the end of the meeting, the guy was like, "Yep, let's do this." And it never, for me, it ever happened like that. I was just like, "This is bullshit. There's no way. This is a dream." And we just started negotiating the contract, and Nikki named the band, and we at the time I thought that was the only holdup for us going on Crew Fest 1. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there and we're like, oh, we got to come up with names. We submitted like 500 names to the label, mm-hmm. And finally he called and I was like, I've got it. And at that point I was like, just call us fucking Shark Sandwich. I don't care. We just wanted to get out on the road with them. But yeah, man. So it was just a surreal experience, to go on tour with those guys.
Did Nikki offer any advice? Did he say, listen, you need to have a certain look, your sound has to be a certain way, you need to sneer a certain way when you sing? Did he offer anything at all?
No, nothing okay. In that regard. I think he felt like, we had, we were on the right path, I should say that.
Okay.
I don't think, he felt like he needed to intervene to really fix something that was wrong. Fortunately for us.
Yeah, Russ.
Yeah.
I'll give you a chance to ask a couple of questions.
Well, let's talk about the new album, Battles. Yeah. I love it, by the way.
Thanks.
So I'm a bit biased. The cover is awesome. Is that you on the cover?
It is me. Yeah.
That's a great shot. That's a really good cover. Are you going to do a vinyl version of that? Because it would look great, big. Like, I'm sure.
We've talked about that, and I've had at least one person ask about it. So we have one sale already.
There you go.
Well, now you're the second
you're
one.
Two.
I'm number two. But I've been listening to the whole record a couple times, and I love "Want" is a great. You guys sound like Rolling Stones of the millennium or something. It's got a great vibe, that tune.
Thank you, man. That's probably one of my favorite songs on the record. That was one of those songs where you hear people talk about, like, the guitar player and myself were in the studio, in my basement, studio, working on, we were tracking another song, actually, and he started playing a riff, he was just warming up or something, and I was like, that's cool. So I recorded it, and just, some lyrics, scat lyrics or whatever just came out, and the song came together very quickly, and like we were talking about before, I don't know, I don't know how people are going to react to it, but I love it, and I'm really glad it struck a chord with you.
Well, I think that you have to love it too, definitely first for, to make it's real. It sounds real. The tune's got a great rock vibe, and I wanted to ask you, how come you guys did the cover of God's Gonna Cut You Down?
We are huge Johnny Cash fans, and we went back and we checked out. Actually, I checked out the Odetta version of the song. I'm a huge fan of Delta blues and blues in general, but yeah, I thought we could rock it up and kind of do something interesting with it, We'll probably get tons of hate mail from Johnny Cash fans, but
are you going to do it live?
Yeah, I think we will do it live. I think it has a good feel to it. Kind of chunks along, man. It's got a nice, aggressive, kind of Metallica kind of vibe to me.
You did a great job. Definitely.
Yeah, you really did. I'd like to actually just ask you about how do you compare Battles to the previous two albums, Sins and Let It Rock and Roll?
Well, it's the newest one.
Of course. But musically, have you evolved? Has it? I mean, what?
I think that I don't know. I think in some ways it's a combination of the two records. I think Sins was a little bit of a departure from the first record, which was the first record was kind of like I was talking about before. It was written by myself almost entirely before I had the lineup of the band put together. So a lot of that material on there was tracked. I played drums on it. I played guitar on it. I played bass on some of the tracks. So a lot of that was, you're getting kind of a one sort of viewpoint or one-dimensional kind of thing. And then Sins kind of, finally there was a band there, and now this record is sort of like fully realized where, we have some of the more traditional rock and blues influences that I was trying to, put forth on the first record, and in a context of this band and how we've grown as players and such, and I've grown as a singer over the last three albums,
Now, the important question is, are we going to see a Charm City Devils Killer Dwarves package tour?
No, that'd be great, man. Love that.
It'd be the grandpas and their grandchildren tour. I think you guys should be out with Rival Sons. I think that would be a great package.
Yeah, that actually is not a bad bill.
Cool, yeah. I heard one of the cuts from the last record. I loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are both, young bands doing
It, as they say.
reinventing the wheel, as they say, I guess.
John, without wanting to bring the whole thing down, do you have just a few words for Jeff Reid, your bass player of SR-71 who passed away?
Yeah, and, it was shocking. It was it was a sad thing.
Very much
Jeff,
so. I mean, lung cancer is not, is never a fun thing. It's terrible.
No,
It's a terrible thing.
it was he actually first was diagnosed when we were working on that second record, on the Tomorrow record. We were just getting ready to go in to start writing and demoing and stuff, and he had actually been out on his boat. He used to have this I can't remember what they're called now. It was like a tow line with like a boogie board kind of thing, like a bodyboard thing.
Right.
And he had gotten injured a little bit. He went to the ER, and they did an X-ray on his chest, and that's when they saw the dark spot the first time. And then, and Jeff was the type of guy who he would downplay things, and he would he was very kind of a strong silent type, and but he laid little hints to me that it was maybe a little more serious than he was letting on to the other guys. So the whole process of doing that record was very tough, on an emotional level, and getting through that. And we thought that he was out of the woods once he had had surgery, and they had removed a significant portion of one of his lungs. But that wasn't the case, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
And he's greatly missed, because he's a really fun guy, a really interesting guy, and probably the best bass player I ever had the honor and pleasure of playing drums, with.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to end on that. Russ, do you have any other thoughts?
Thoughts, yes. That old gag. I just want to wish these guys luck. Since I met them on the Mork, and I think we do the meet and greet first.
Yeah, we did the first day. We didn't know each other, and we got to talk, and it was great, man. With great dudes.
In the first 5 minutes and everything, and then I want to put my 2 cents in and say, if any, go out and buy this record and support these guys and go and see them. They're a great live rock and roll band. Totally proud to know these cats, and the best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just end with that. The new album is Battles. The new single is Shots. And, of course, check out charmedcitydevils.com. John, pleasure. It was great speaking with you, and it was even greater listening to the album. I mean, what a great slice of rock and roll that is. Absolutely great slice of rock and roll.
Guys, man, thank you, Russ. Thank you, Mitch, man. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
There you go. That was John Allen talking about the band's new album, Charm City Devils' new album, Battles, that comes out in September. I will remind you one last time before signing off that this episode of One on One is brought to you by the Melodic Rock Fest 4 that takes place October 3rd and 4th in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and features performances by Mitch Malloy, Heaven's Edge, Seventh Heaven, and many more. For tickets and all information, visit MelodicRockFest.com. Jayda, do you want to come and join me on this podcast more often?
Sure.
Because you just have so much to say, right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks. I guess there is nothing else to say. Tune in next week for episode 39. And, of course, I will remind you there is a new Kiss tribute CD that I have put together, and in fact it's an EP available on iTunes. It's called A World with Heroes, the EP featuring the very last performance by Dick Wagner doing Every Time I Look at You. The Killer Dwarves are on it, Matt Bradshaw, Sudden Flames out of Montreal, and Sean Kelly of 4 by Fate. And all the money generated by the sales of that EP go to the Vaudreuil-Soulanges Palliative Care Home in beautiful Vaudreuil-Soulanges, Quebec, Canada. So please check that out. Thank you. Bye now.